Thanks for clicking on my video. Please comment, share, like and subscribe. It all helps to build my channel. Hello, my name's GJ Armstrong and I'm learning archery for the first time at 67 years of age. And if anybody has followed some of the videos that I've already put on about someone at 67 starting a new hobby such as archery, then you'll have seen a few other videos I've made. If you subscribe, please subscribe if you can. It doesn't cost you anything. You just click the button and then, you know, it helps me, it helps the algorithms, because without subscriptions you don't go up the ladder in the road. So what have I learnt so far? Well, I've been doing some studying online and in books, and also on, of course, YouTube, the wonderful YouTube, the one place where you can find out anything. So what do I know so far? Well, let's just go through it quickly. That's an arrow. Can you see that? I don't think that stands out, does it? Can you see it? No, you can't see that. Well, that's a waste of time, isn't it? Okay, well, let's do it the old-fashioned way. So, arrows. What is an arrow? Well, this is an arrow, of course. Everybody can recognize an arrow. And what does an arrow consist of? Well, there's a point, or an arrow head. There's a tail end, which goes with a gap that goes into the string. That's called a nock. Now, nocks come in different sizes and also in different configurations. For example, this is a nock that is a push-on nock. So that goes around the outside of the shaft like that. On the other hand, you can have one that pushes into the shaft. And so what that would do is that would go inside the shaft like that, and you'd have to glue it in this case. I'll explain that in a bit. Or sometimes you just push in nice and tight and then you just turn it round until it's lined up. You've also got these. Now what that is a pin nock. That's an aluminium pin that goes into the end of the shaft, and there's a plastic nock on the end of it. Now if that breaks, you can just replace it. But it also serves another function, and that is weight. Because if you're making up an arrow shaft rather than just buying them like I intend to do, then you've got the weight at the back of the arrow and you've got the weight at the front of the arrow. Now the weight at the front of the arrow, your point, can come in various sizes. This is a break-off point, so you can actually break off parts of it or cut off parts of it to lighten the load. That's 100 grams, and it also goes 100 grams, 75 grams, and then down to 50 grams. And that goes in the end of that, and you glue these in. Now, the best way to glue them in is with hot glue, because you can melt the hot glue and pull it out and replace it, or you can change the weight on it, add weight, put an heavier point in to adjust the flight characteristics of your arrow. So the thing is, why not just plonk it all on and flirt it? Well, it doesn't work that way, because the thing is, when you fire an arrow through your bow, there's a thing called the archer's paradox. So what it does is it bends and flexes. Reason being, all that power is coming from the string through the bow, and because of the weight at the front, the back bends as it pushes all that inertia into the arrow, and it bends and then it curls the other way, and it carries on like this. It's called the archer's paradox. But balance is key. Balance is key. So at the end of the day, what you've got to do is you've got to get what is called FOC, or forward of center. Now, in aeronautics, there's also a thing called C of G, or center of gravity. It's the same thing. Basically, on the chord of a wing, or the side section of a wing, it's usually anywhere around about the 25% mark. But it can, you know, you have to balance the plane so that the plane actually flies level. Now the arrow is the same, but we call it in archery FOC, forward of center. What that means is what you've got to do is you've got to, let's get this. So what you got to do is you've got to find the center of the gravity of the arrow. Now this arrow is right in the center. And that's because this is a cheap crap arrow. So what do? You throw them away and you buy yourself a shaft. Now the shaft diameter, we always look at ID, not the OD, but the ID, the inside dimension. That's what we deal with when referring to arrows. So the thing is, you've got a shaft. You buy a bare shaft or a blank shaft. This, in actual fact, this shaft is a Penthalon Slimline Black by Bear Paw. It's 1,000 spine. Now, before I go into the spine thing, it's also plus or minus 0.006 in straightness. Now, what that means is there's a 0.006 degree or thousandths of an inch of variation or tolerance in the straightness of the arrow. You want the arrow to be as straight as possible. But sometimes, because of the molding factor, when they're making these carbon fiber arrows, this is a carbon fiber arrow, you know, you can get variance in it. You're dealing with heat. Heat changes things. It twists things and all that. They make these on a mandrel, and they wrap it round and they put it in an oven and heat it, and the resin that's in the carbon fiber strands then bonds, and then they pull it off the mandrel and away you go. That's how it's manufactured. But straightness, now 0.006 is about the average of your common garden shaft. But you can actually get it down to 0.001, which is very, very expensive arrows. But when you're starting, your best bet is to start at the bottom and work your way up. Don't just go in and start firing money onto it and buying the best that you can get, because unless you understand exactly what's going on, you'll just be wasting your money. And when you break these things, they're broke for good. And when you're practicing and just learning, you're going to break some arrows. It's as simple as that. Inroad. So there's your shaft. That's a full shaft. That's 32 inches long. And let's just double check it is. I'm sure it is 32 inches long. But yeah, 32 inches long. But here's the thing. When you make up your arrow, you won't want a 32-inch long arrow. You've bought the blank. So the next thing that I've got to do is I've got to work out my draw length. That's the length from the front of the bow, where I hold it, to where I'm going to anchor, or where I'm going to keep pulling to the same length every time. And that's a key thing. You've got to get your anchor. You've got to be consistent in the draw length. Now, I've worked out my draw length, and my draw length is 25 inches. Now, there's a few experienced archers that have told me that as time goes on, that will actually stretch, because, you know, the muscles and everything used for archery, for pulling the bow, actually expands. You know, your shoulders get bigger, and it's part of the facts because it's a physical sport. Anyway, so because of that, what I've done is I've cut this shaft down to 27 inches. Now, the reason for that is because I don't want too much hanging over the edge of the bow. But by the time I've got a 27-inch shaft, and I've got the point in the front, which is going to give me another good ½ inch, and then there's a good almost inch on the back with the knock, that's going to give me a length altogether. I'll just measure it just to make sure, but it should work out at 28.5. So I've got 28.5 inch arrow. Now the thing is, most of the time, the arrow that is used as a datum is a 28-inch arrow or a 28-inch draw. That's what bows are measured on in terms of draw weight, right? Now, the draw weight of my bow, which is a Samick Sage, is 25 pounds. It's only very light, which is why we come back to the spine of the arrow. Now, the way it works with the spine of the arrow is each arrow that you get, and I use this cheap one because it bends easy. This arrow, right? Let's say that it's a 25-pound bow, 25-pound draw weight bow. So working off a scale, and this particular scale, I'll put this on screen now. Right, okay, that was the AMA and ATA spine chart. Now, what that does is that measures on a spine a spine measurement tool, if you like, which measures the amount of bend when you put 880 grams of weight on the arrow, and the deflection or the amount of drop in the center gives you a measurement that you can then relate. So, for example, if I was to put a weight on the bow, in fact, I'll get my weight and show you. I'm back again. If I get my weight, this is a weight I made with some shot in like a plastic bottle with 2 hooks on, and altogether it weighs exactly 880 grams, exactly. Now, if I put that at 28 inches apart on 2 hooks, which I've got on my wall over there, that weight in the center drops it down to a certain degree from straight. So you see that bend in there as it drops, that's what you're measuring between perfectly flat and the full deflection. And that can determine then, off the chart, can determine, so let's say, for example, that on the chart, this deflects down to 25 millimeters. So if I get 25 millimeters of deflection, if we look on the chart, 25.53 millimeters of deflection means that I need a 25 or a 26 pound bow, which is 1.005 inches deflection. So a 26 pound bow. So the thing is, I'm building my arrow, my first arrow, and I'm building it 28.5 inches. Now the thing is, the deflection on this is rated for 1,000, but the shorter you go, the tighter it is, so it stiffens it up, you see. So I'm erring on the side of caution. But the next thing that I've got to worry about is weight. Everything. Weight is always a factor in all things. So what we've got there is a 100 gram head or point, right? We've got the shaft. The shaft is measuring, it says on here, at 5 grains per inch, not grams, but grains. Everything's measured in grains. So the thing is, I've got a 5 grain per inch shaft. I've got a 100 gram point in one end. I've got this, which is the knock, and I just look at my list there, and where is it? I've made a list of the weights of all the things, and so what I'm going to be dealing with, there it is I'm going to be dealing with the knock and the insert, I'm using that one, the pin. So the knock and pin going in there is weighing in at 13.1 grains. Now, I've also got fletchings, of which I've already weighed the fletchings. You might have seen the video on weighing feathers. And these feathers, these are feathers because I'm shooting off the shelf, not off a rest on the bow. These real feathers weigh in at 4.2 grains. So all in all, when I've finished, I'm going to have an arrow which is going to be slightly overweight at the front. Reason being that when it comes to balancing the arrow, as I balance the arrow, it's a bit too far this way because it's forward of the center that is the important factor. Now, if you can see that, that's about 25%. I don't need that. What I need is between 7 and 15%. That's the target. The target to get is between 7 and 15%. So at the end of the day, this means that with the feathers on the back, and incidentally, if you put in arrow shaft, what did I put in? Arrow shaft calculator, arrow FOC calculator into Google, there's loads of calculators come up. You just put all the information that you can get on it, the weight of your knock, your point, your shaft per inch, the weight of your fletchings, and anything else, and the length, and then it automatically calculates what is the overall weight and where exactly your FOC, your forward of center, is going to be. So we need it between 7 and 15%, which is up here. So because I've got 100 grains in there, it's actually very heavy. So I can't balance it because, you know, it's, what's it called? It's too heavy. So what I've got to do is I'm going to reduce this to 75 grains. I'm going to take that part off it. And then when I put that in, I should have, hopefully, the target is an FOC, or forward of center, of 13.51. So that then is going to be 13.51% of the center, which should, in theory, make this arrow fly true, or as true as it can get. Thanks for clicking on my video. Please comment, share, like and subscribe. It all helps to build my channel.